Welcome to NBA Season Recaps, where we dive deep into the most fascinating chapters of basketball history. I'm here to tell you the complete story of the 2016 to 2017 NBA season. If you enjoy falling asleep to the gentle rhythm of basketball history, consider subscribing to NBA Season Recaps and hitting that notification bell. We upload new, sleep-friendly basketball stories every week. Tonight, we're going back to 2016, to a season that would reshape the very foundation of professional basketball. This is the tale of vengeance and vindication, of broken hearts and shattered records. So close your eyes if you like. Let the words wash over you. Like rain on summer leaves, there is no rush. There is only the story, unfolding slowly through the nights and weeks and months of an unforgettable basketball season. This is the 2016 to 2017 NBA season, and it begins, as all great seasons do, with a decision that changed everything. This is the story of the 2016 to 2017 season. It is a season that will forever be remembered as the year basketball's landscape shifted beneath everyone's feet. A season in which Russell Westbrook became the first player since Oscar Robertson to average a triple-double. A season in which the Golden State Warriors assembled what many would call the greatest collection of talent ever seen on one roster. A season in which Tim Duncan walked away from the game after 19 legendary years. But this is also a story of redemption and revenge, of loyalty tested and championships traced. It is a story that builds week by week, game by game, through the long winter nights toward an inevitable spring conclusion. So close your eyes if you like. Let the words carry you like gentle waves across this ocean of basketball history. This is the 2016 to 2017 season, and it begins with the most shocking announcement in modern basketball history. Chapter 1, My Next Chapter. The summer of 2016 was unlike anything the basketball world had ever seen. Free agency had always been dramatic, but nothing could have prepared anyone for what was about to unfold on the 4th of July. Kevin Durant sat in his hotel room, probably staring at his laptop screen, knowing that with a few hundred words, he was about to send shockwaves through the entire sport. The Oklahoma City Thunder superstar, the same Kevin Durant who had just led his team to within one game of the NBA Finals, was about to make a decision that would define his legacy forever. The weight of the moment was suffocating. Durant had spent sleepless nights wrestling with possibilities, analyzing scenarios, imagining futures that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. He had built something beautiful in Oklahoma City, something that felt like family, like home, like everything basketball was supposed to represent. But beauty, he had learned, was not always enough. My Next Chapter, he titled it. The article on the Players' Tribune would go live at exactly 9:35 in the morning, Pacific time. With those words, Kevin Wayne Durant announced that he was leaving Oklahoma City to join the Golden State Warriors. The basketball world stopped, literally stopped. Here was Kevin Durant, a player who had spent 9 seasons building something special in Oklahoma City, a player who had just come back from being down 3-1 against the very team he was now joining, a player who had averaged 28.2 points in the Western Conference Finals, who had brought the Thunder to the brink of the NBA Finals, who had the Warriors on the ropes, and now he was joining them. The announcement reverberated through social media like wildfire spreading across dry grass. In Oklahoma City, the betrayal felt personal, visceral, complete. Fans who had supported Durant through injury and heartbreak now felt abandoned by the very player they had elevated to hero status. The local sports bars that had displayed Durant jerseys with pride began taking them down, some ceremoniously, others in anger. The reaction was swift and merciless. In Oklahoma City, fans burned Durant jerseys in parking lots. Former teammates expressed their shock and disappointment. Russell Westbrook, Durant's longtime partner, said nothing publicly. But the silence spoke volumes. That silence was perhaps more devastating than any angry words could have been. A void where friendship and partnership used to exist. But for Durant, this wasn't about betrayal or taking an easy path. In his own words, he was looking for his next chapter. Seeking an environment where he could grow both as a player and as a person. The Warriors, fresh off their 73-win season and devastating Game 7 loss to Cleveland, represented everything Durant had been searching for: ball movement, defensive intensity, and a culture of selfless basketball. The decision was about basketball purity, about the kind of offense that flowed like water finding its level, about defense that functioned like a single organism responding to threats. Durant had watched the Warriors play during their Western Conference Finals series and seen something that transcended individual talent. He had seen basketball as it was meant to be played. The contract details were staggering in their simplicity. 2 years, $54.3 million, with a player option for the second year. Durant was actually taking less money to join Golden State, sacrificing approximately $9.5 million compared to what he could have earned by staying in Oklahoma City. Money had never been the driving factor. Durant was already wealthy beyond any reasonable measure. This was about legacy, about championships, about the kind of basketball immortality that could only be achieved through team success at the highest level. Durant wanted to win, and he wanted to win playing beautiful basketball. The basketball ramifications were immediate and profound. Golden State now possessed what many considered the most talented starting five in NBA history: Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and whatever center they chose to deploy. 4 all-stars, 4 players capable of taking over any game at any moment. The Warriors' Summer League games became must-see television as fans tried to glimpse what this new iteration might look like. Durant was spotted working out with his new teammates in private gyms throughout the Bay Area, learning the intricacies of a system that had already achieved unprecedented success without him. In Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook was now alone. The dynamic duo that had carried the Thunder for nearly a decade was dissolved. Westbrook, who had deferred to Durant for years, would now have the keys to the entire franchise. Nobody knew what that would look like, but everyone understood it would be intense. The Thunder front office scrambled to rebuild around their remaining superstar. General Manager Sam Presti had to completely reimagine the franchise's future, trading for Victor Oladipo from the Orlando Magic and signing veteran Al Horford to provide leadership and stability. The retool would be aggressive and immediate. The rest of the league scrambled to adjust. LeBron James publicly congratulated Durant, but privately had to know this made his path to another championship significantly more difficult. The Cleveland Cavaliers had just overcome a 3-1 deficit to win their first title in franchise history. But now they faced a Warriors team that would be even more formidable. But Durant's decision was just the beginning of a transformative summer that would reshape basketball's competitive landscape in ways that wouldn't become clear until the season actually began. As July progressed, other moves began to reshape the league's balance of power. Dwyane Wade, after 13 seasons with the Miami Heat, shocked everyone by signing with the Chicago Bulls. Wade had been the face of the Heat franchise, the Finals MVP of their first championship in 2006, a player who had seemingly been destined to spend his entire career in South Beach. But financial disagreements and organizational changes led to his departure, bringing him back to his hometown of Chicago. Wade's signing with Chicago represented more than just a homecoming. It was a statement that loyalty in modern basketball had become a two-way street. that franchises couldn't expect player dedication without reciprocal organizational commitment. Wade felt undervalued in Miami, and he was willing to leave paradise to find appreciation elsewhere. Al Horford, the longtime Atlanta Hawks center, signed with the Boston Celtics, giving them a legitimate big man to pair with their emerging young core. Horford was the kind of veteran presence that could elevate a young team's ceiling, a player who understood what playoff basketball required and could teach those lessons to teammates who had never experienced that level of competition. DeMar DeRozan re-signed with the Toronto Raptors for $92 million over 5 years, ensuring the Raptors would remain competitive in the Eastern Conference. DeRozan's loyalty to Toronto was rewarded with a contract that reflected his status as one of the league's most consistent scorers and the face of basketball's international expansion. The coaching carousel was equally dramatic. 10 teams changed head coaches, the most significant being Mike D'Antoni's hiring by the Houston Rockets. D'Antoni's up-tempo, three-point heavy offense seemed perfectly suited to a Rockets team built around James Harden's unique skill set. D'Antoni brought with him a revolutionary approach to offensive basketball, one that would prioritize three-pointers and layups while virtually eliminating mid-range shots. His 7 seconds or less philosophy from his Phoenix Suns days would be updated for the analytics era, creating an offensive system that would influence the entire league. Jeff Hornacek was hired by the New York Knicks, bringing his player development expertise to a franchise desperate for stability. Frank Vogel was dismissed by the Indiana Pacers despite leading them to the playoffs, replaced by Nate McMillan as the franchise looked for a new voice. Scott Brooks was hired by the Washington Wizards, reuniting with his former Oklahoma City point guard Russell Westbrook's backcourt mate Bradley Beal. But the summer's most poignant moment came on July 11th, when Tim Duncan announced his retirement. The big fundamental, after 19 seasons, 5 championships, and countless memories, was walking away from the game. Duncan's retirement press conference was characteristically understated, but the impact was enormous. The San Antonio Spurs, a franchise defined by Duncan's consistency and leadership, would have to find a way to move forward without their cornerstone. Duncan's career statistics told only part of the story. 15 All-Star selections, 15 All-NBA teams, 15 All-Defensive teams, 3 Finals MVPs, and 2 regular season MVPs. But numbers couldn't capture Duncan's true impact. The quiet leadership, the fundamental soundness, the way he elevated everyone around him without ever demanding credit or recognition. The retirement marked the end of an era that had defined basketball excellence for nearly 2 decades. Duncan had entered the league in 1997 as a rookie with the Spurs, and he was leaving it in 2016 as a 5-time champion who had never missed the playoffs. His consistency was so remarkable that it had become mundane. His greatness so sustained that it was easy to take for granted. Kevin Garnett announced his retirement in September, ending a 21-year career that spanned from high school directly to the NBA. The Big Ticket, as he was known, had been the emotional heart of the Minnesota Timberwolves and later the Boston Celtics' championship team. Garnett was the last remaining player from the 1995 draft, a reminder of how much the game had evolved over 2 decades. Garnett's intensity had been legendary, his passion infectious, his commitment to defensive excellence uncompromising. He had revolutionized the power forward position, showing that big men could be versatile, emotional, and impactful in ways that went beyond traditional statistical measures. His retirement meant that an entire generation of basketball intensity was passing into history. Paul Pierce announced that the 2016 to 2017 season would be his last, bringing an end to a 19-year career that included 10 All-Star selections and an NBA championship with Boston. The Truth, as he called himself, had been one of the most clutch performers of his generation. a player who seemed to elevate his game whenever the stakes were highest. Pierce's announcement added another layer of nostalgia to a season that was already heavy with transition. The players who had defined basketball in the 2000s were stepping away, making room for a new generation that would inherit a sport that was more athletic, more systematic, and more globally competitive than ever before. As training camps opened in late September, the questions were endless and profound. How would Durant fit with the Warriors' established chemistry? Could Russell Westbrook carry Oklahoma City on his own? How would Wade adapt to Chicago's system after 13 years in Miami? Could the Cavaliers repeat as champions against an even stronger Golden State team? The preseason provided some hints, tantalizing glimpses of what the regular season might hold. Golden State looked as advertised. With Durant fitting seamlessly into their ball movement system, the chemistry was immediate and frightening for the rest of the league. Durant's length and versatility gave them dimensions they'd never possessed, while his scoring ability provided yet another weapon in an already loaded arsenal. In Oklahoma City, Westbrook looked like a man possessed. Without Durant to defer to, he was taking over games in ways that were both spectacular and slightly concerning. His usage rate was through the roof, but so was his production. The Thunder had surrounded him with solid role players like Victor Oladipo and Steven Adams. But everyone knew the season would rise or fall on Westbrook's shoulders. The Chicago Bulls looked like a team still figuring out how to integrate Wade into their system. The future Hall of Famer was clearly still capable of excellence. But at 34, he couldn't carry the offensive burden he once had in Miami. His partnership with Jimmy Butler would need time to develop, and the Bulls' championship aspirations would depend on how quickly that chemistry could emerge. The Boston Celtics, with Horford's addition, looked like a team ready to take a significant step forward. Isaiah Thomas was emerging as one of the league's most dynamic scorers, while young players like Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart were showing the kind of development that suggested a bright future. Horford's veteran presence gave them a foundation for sustained success. As October approached, one thing was clear. The 2016 to 2017 season would be unlike any in recent memory. The stage was set for a season that would redefine what we thought we knew about basketball excellence, about loyalty and ambition, about the balance between individual achievement and team success. The decisions made during the summer would have consequences that extended far beyond a single season, shaping the league's competitive balance for years to come. The season was about to begin, and with it, the answers to questions that had dominated basketball conversations since Kevin Durant's shocking July announcement would finally start to emerge on the court, where they ultimately mattered most. Chapter 2, A Thunder Without Lightning, October 25th, 2016. The season opened with the Cleveland Cavaliers receiving their championship rings in a ceremony that felt both celebratory and ominous. As the golden banners rose to the rafters of Quicken Loans Arena, everyone in attendance understood they were witnessing something special. The first championship celebration in Cleveland in 52 years. The ceremony was emotional and cathartic for a city that had endured decades of sporting disappointment. LeBron James wiped away tears as he spoke to the crowd, his voice breaking as he described what the championship had meant to Northeast Ohio. The banner that rose to the rafters represented more than basketball success. It was redemption for an entire region that had waited a lifetime for this moment. But across the country, a different story was beginning to unfold. In Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook was preparing for his first season without Kevin Durant since 2007. The man who had spent 9 seasons as the second option was now the unquestioned leader of a franchise desperate to prove they could survive Durant's departure. The transformation was visible from the first practice. Westbrook carried himself differently, spoke differently, approached every possession with a desperation that seemed to burn from within. The betrayal he felt was never explicitly stated, but it was written in every aggressive drive to the basket, every contested rebound, every defiant celebration. The early returns were spectacular and terrifying in equal measure. Westbrook opened the season with a 48-point triple-double against the Philadelphia 76ers, serving notice that this would be a season unlike any other. But it wasn't just the numbers that caught attention. It was the intensity. Westbrook played with a fury that seemed to burn everything in its path. The Philadelphia game set the tone for what would become Westbrook's season-long audition for basketball immortality. He scored 48 points on 17 of 31 shooting, grabbed 10 rebounds, and dished out 10 assists. The triple-double was just the beginning. It was the manner in which he achieved it that left everyone speechless. Every shot was contested aggressively. Every rebound was pursued with maximum effort. Every assist came from a player who seemed to see the entire court as his personal responsibility. Game after game, night after night, Westbrook put up statistics that defied belief. By November, he was averaging over 30 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists per game. The last player to accomplish this feat was Oscar Robertson in 1961 to 1962, a season that had become basketball legend. But Westbrook wasn't just chasing history. He was rewriting it with a vengeance that felt personal. Every dunk was thunderous. Every steal was aggressive. Every celebration was defiant. This wasn't just basketball. It was performance art with a point to prove. He was showing the world what Kevin Durant had walked away from, what loyalty looked like, what carrying a franchise on your shoulders actually required. The supporting cast around Westbrook was solid but unspectacular, and they understood their role perfectly. Victor Oladipo provided secondary scoring and defensive intensity, emerging as the perfect complement to Westbrook's relentless approach. Steven Adams anchored the paint with his physical presence and improving skill set, setting screens that freed Westbrook for optimal rebounding positions and finishing opportunities around the rim. Andre Roberson was one of the league's best perimeter defenders, despite his shooting limitations, providing the kind of defensive stability that allowed Westbrook to gamble and create turnovers. Enes Kanter provided offense off the bench, scoring in bunches when the starting unit needed rest. Each player had found ways to maximize Westbrook's impact while minimizing the burden on their superstar. But everyone understood the formula. Westbrook would do everything, and everyone else would try to help. It was basketball at its most singular, and somehow it was working. The Thunder were exceeding expectations, playing competitive basketball against teams that had significantly more talent on paper. Meanwhile, in Oakland, Kevin Durant was discovering just how easy basketball could be when surrounded by elite talent. The Golden State Warriors opened the season with a level of offensive efficiency that seemed almost unfair. Durant's integration was seamless, his length and scoring ability complementing Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green perfectly. The Warriors' starting lineup was posting video game numbers. They outscored opponents by more than 20 points per 100 possessions when all 5 starters played together. They were shooting 45% from three-point range as a unit. They were switching defensively with an ease that made every possession look effortless. Durant was having fun in a way he hadn't experienced in years. In Oklahoma City, every possession had felt like a struggle. Every win had required maximum effort. With the Warriors, basketball felt like what it was supposed to be, a game. The ball moved effortlessly from player to player, finding the best shot regardless of who took it. The defense functioned as a collective unit, switching and rotating with precision that made opposing offenses look confused and overwhelmed. The contrast with his Oklahoma City experience was stark and sometimes uncomfortable. Durant would catch himself enjoying moments that he knew would be painful for his former teammates, and the fans who had supported him for 9 seasons. The ease of success in Golden State was exactly what he had been seeking. But it came with the knowledge that his former team was struggling without him. The media narrative was inevitable and uncomfortable. Every time the Warriors played the Thunder, every time Durant put up 30 points in a comfortable victory while Westbrook exhausted himself in a losing effort, the contrast became more stark. Durant had chosen the easy path and was being rewarded for it. Westbrook had chosen loyalty and was being punished for it. But that narrative was too simple. Westbrook wasn't just putting up empty statistics. The Thunder were winning games, playing competitive basketball, proving that their identity didn't have to die with Durant's departure. They were a different team, less talented, but perhaps more interesting, more emotionally compelling, more representative of what basketball could mean to a community. In San Antonio, the Spurs were adjusting to life after Tim Duncan, with a kind of seamless transition that had defined their organization for decades. Kawhi Leonard was emerging as a legitimate superstar, his two-way excellence carrying a franchise that had been defined by consistency for nearly 2 decades. Leonard's development from role player to superstar had been remarkable, and he was now ready to become the face of the Spurs' next championship pursuit. LaMarcus Aldridge was finding his rhythm in his second season with the team, learning how to operate within the Spurs system while still providing the scoring punch they needed. The Spurs were proving that good organizations find ways to sustain success even when legends retire, that culture and system could overcome even the most significant personnel losses. The Boston Celtics, with Al Horford's addition, were becoming a legitimate force in the Eastern Conference. Isaiah Thomas was having a breakout season, proving that a 5'9" guard could still dominate in the modern NBA through skill, determination, and basketball intelligence. The Celtics played with an intelligence and cohesion that reflected Coach Brad Stevens' system perfectly, maximizing their talent through superior preparation and execution. Horford's impact was immediately visible, providing the kind of veteran leadership and playoff experience that young teams needed to take the next step. His ability to space the floor and facilitate offense gave the Celtics dimensions they had never possessed, while his defensive presence stabilized their interior protection. In Houston, James Harden was thriving under Mike D'Antoni's system in ways that were revolutionizing how people thought about offensive basketball. The Rockets were playing at a pace that made opponents dizzy, launching three-pointers at a rate never before seen in NBA history. Harden's usage rate was astronomical. But unlike Westbrook's frenzied approach, Harden's game felt controlled, almost leisurely in its efficiency. D'Antoni had constructed an offensive system that maximized Harden's unique skill set while surrounding him with players who could execute their roles within the framework. Ryan Anderson provided floor spacing from the power forward position. Eric Gordon gave them microwave scoring off the bench. Clint Capella was developing into a rim-running center who could finish Harden's creative passes. The Rockets' approach was analytically sound, but aesthetically controversial. They were attempting more three-pointers than layups, virtually eliminating mid-range shots from their offense. The strategy was mathematically logical, but required a level of discipline and precision that had never been sustained at the NBA level. The Cleveland Cavaliers were coasting through the regular season with the confidence of defending champions. LeBron James was playing at an MVP level while managing his minutes perfectly for a playoff run. At 32, he was still the best player in the world, but he was smart enough to understand that regular season excellence meant nothing without postseason success. Kyrie Irving was establishing himself as one of the league's most clutch performers, building on his finals heroics with another season of spectacular individual moments. Kevin Love was finding his role as the third option in ways that maximized his unique skill set, providing consistent production while accepting a reduced role for the good of the team. The Cavaliers had added veteran pieces like Kyle Korver and Deron Williams during the season, addressing specific needs while maintaining their championship core. They looked like a team that understood what championship basketball required. But they also faced the daunting task of defending their title against a Warriors team that had added Kevin Durant. But everyone knew the regular season was just preparation. The Warriors were too talented, too deep, too cohesive for anyone to seriously challenge them over 82 games. The real question wasn't whether Golden State would have the best record. It was whether they could handle the pressure of expectations, and whether any team could challenge them in a 7-game series. By December, certain patterns were becoming clear. Westbrook was on pace to average a triple-double, something no player had done since Oscar Robertson. The Warriors were on pace to win 70 games again. The Cavaliers looked like the only team capable of challenging Golden State in a 7-game series. But even that seemed optimistic, given the talent disparity. The Christmas Day games provided a perfect snapshot of the season's dynamics. Golden State destroyed Cleveland in a game that felt like a statement. Durant scored 25 points in just 30 minutes. The Warriors led by 25 points at halftime and never let up. It was basketball as dominance display, and it sent a clear message. The defending champions would have to get significantly better to compete with this new version of the Warriors. The game was played in Oakland, and the atmosphere was electric with anticipation of a potential finals preview. But the Warriors treated it like a regular season game against an overmatched opponent, jumping out to an early lead and maintaining it throughout. Their ball movement was crisp, their defense was suffocating, and their execution was nearly flawless. Durant's performance was the most significant aspect of the victory. He was playing with a confidence and aggressiveness that suggested he was completely comfortable in his new environment. His shots came within the flow of the offense. His defensive effort was consistent, and his leadership was evident in how he communicated with teammates. But the most compelling storyline remained Westbrook's individual excellence. Game after game, he was putting up numbers that seemed impossible. 40 points, 15 rebounds, 12 assists became commonplace. Triple-doubles became routine. The Thunder were competitive because one man was playing basketball at a level that transcended normal expectations. As January approached, the season had already produced more drama and individual excellence than most complete seasons. Westbrook was chasing history. Durant was chasing redemption. The Warriors were chasing perfection. The Cavaliers were chasing repeat glory. The stage was set for a winter that would determine which of these narratives would ultimately triumph, and whether individual excellence or systematic team building would define basketball success in the modern era. Chapter 3: The Art of Triple-Doubles. By the new year, Russell Westbrook had already accumulated 24 triple-doubles, putting him well ahead of the pace needed to surpass Oscar Robertson's single-season record of 41. But what made Westbrook's achievement special wasn't just the frequency of his triple-doubles. It was the manner in which he accumulated them. This wasn't stat padding, though critics would later make that accusation. This was basketball desperation, elevated to high art. Westbrook was doing everything because his team needed him to do everything. He was rebounding like a power forward because the Thunder needed extra possessions. He was assisting like a point guard because his teammates needed easy baskets. He was scoring like a shooting guard because someone had to carry the offensive burden. The nightly routine became almost ritualistic. Westbrook would check the stat sheet during timeouts, not out of vanity, but out of necessity. If he had 8 rebounds and needed 2 more for a triple-double, he would position himself differently on the next few possessions. If he needed 1 more assist, he would look to set up teammates even more aggressively. The triple-double wasn't just a statistical achievement. It was a tactical approach to winning basketball games. His teammates understood their roles perfectly and embraced them completely. Steven Adams, the Thunder's New Zealand center, began boxing out opposing players to give Westbrook cleaner rebounds. It wasn't artificial. It was strategic. Adams recognized that an extra Westbrook rebound often led to a faster break and better offensive opportunities for the entire team. Adams had grown into one of the league's most effective screen setters, using his massive frame and basketball intelligence to create advantages for Westbrook on every possession. His timing was impeccable. His positioning was precise, and his willingness to sacrifice individual statistics for team success was exemplary. Victor Oladipo and Andre Roberson made their cuts more precisely, knowing that Westbrook would find them if they got open. Oladipo was having a career year, freed from the pressure of being a primary option while still contributing significantly to the team's success. His defensive intensity matched Westbrook's, creating a backcourt that could pressure opposing guards relentlessly. Enes Kanter, the Turkish center, focused on creating second-chance opportunities that Westbrook could convert or assist on. Kanter's offensive rebounding was elite, and his understanding of when to secure rebounds versus when to tip them to Westbrook became an art form that contributed to the team's systematic approach to maximizing their superstars' impact. The entire team had reorganized itself around maximizing Westbrook's impact, but they had done so in ways that actually improved their collective performance rather than diminishing it. This was basketball chemistry at its most sophisticated, with every player understanding how their individual excellence could serve the greater good. The results were unprecedented in the modern era of basketball. On January 9th, Westbrook recorded his 27th triple-double of the season with 45 points, 17 rebounds, and 10 assists in a victory over the New Orleans Pelicans. The performance was vintage Westbrook, relentless, efficient, and somehow sustainable night after night. The game against New Orleans was particularly impressive because it came against a team with legitimate NBA talent, including Anthony Davis, who was himself having an exceptional season. Westbrook didn't just accumulate statistics. He dominated every aspect of the game while leading his team to a decisive victory. But individual excellence was only part of the story. The Thunder were actually winning games, sitting comfortably in playoff position despite losing their best player. They were playing a style of basketball that was uniquely their own, chaotic but controlled, frenetic but functional. Their defensive scheme was built around Westbrook's ability to create turnovers and transition opportunities. Andre Roberson would pressure opposing wing players into difficult positions. Westbrook would gamble for steals, and Steven Adams would protect the rim when those gambles failed. The system required perfect timing and communication. But when it worked, it created the kind of easy baskets that made Westbrook's offensive burden more manageable. Meanwhile, in Oakland, the Warriors were discovering that having too much talent could create its own set of challenges. Kevin Durant was averaging 25 points on excellent efficiency, but he was also learning to play within a system that had functioned perfectly without him. Some nights, he was the primary option. Other nights, Stephen Curry would take over. Still other nights, Klay Thompson would get hot and the offense would flow through him. The beauty of the Warriors was their adaptability and unselfishness. They could play fast or slow, big or small, through one player or through ball movement. Durant's addition hadn't disrupted their chemistry. It had enhanced their options while creating matchup problems that no other team in the league could solve. Steve Kerr, the Warriors' head coach, was managing personalities and egos with a light touch that belied the complexity of his task. How do you keep Stephen Curry, the back-to-back MVP, happy when Kevin Durant is getting more shots? How do you maintain Draymond Green's defensive intensity when the team is winning games by 20 points? How do you keep Klay Thompson engaged when he might go entire quarters without touching the ball? The answers were found in the Warriors' culture of selfless excellence. They celebrated each other's success genuinely. They moved the ball because they understood that the best shot was more important than who took it. They defended with collective intensity because they knew that individual defense was meaningless without team defense. Kerr's management style was perfect for a team with multiple superstars. He provided structure without stifling creativity, demanded accountability without creating resentment, and maintained perspective, even when the team was playing at historically dominant levels. By February, their dominance was becoming almost boring for neutral observers. They were winning games by such large margins that their starters often sat entire fourth quarters. Durant was playing fewer minutes than he had since his second season, while posting some of the most efficient numbers of his career. The basketball was beautiful, but it lacked the dramatic tension that made great seasons memorable. The real drama remained in Oklahoma City, where Westbrook continued his assault on the record books. On February 11th, he recorded his 32nd triple-double of the season, moving within striking distance of Robertson's record with more than 20 games remaining. The statistical milestones were impressive, but what made Westbrook's season special was the context. He wasn't just putting up big numbers. He was carrying a franchise that everyone had expected to collapse. The Thunder were exceeding expectations not through balanced team play, but through one player's refusal to accept limitations. His teammates had become extensions of his will. When Westbrook dove for loose balls, they followed. When he contested every defensive possession, they matched his energy. When he played 40 minutes of maximum intensity basketball, they found ways to contribute during their time on the court. The rest of the league was taking notice. Players who had initially criticized Durant's move to Golden State were now praising Westbrook's loyalty and determination. He was becoming the embodiment of everything Durant had supposedly abandoned: competitiveness, loyalty, and the willingness to carry a team regardless of the personal cost. Charles Barkley became one of Westbrook's most vocal supporters, comparing his season to some of the greatest individual performances in basketball history. Magic Johnson praised Westbrook's competitiveness and basketball intelligence. Even Michael Jordan, notoriously stingy with praise for contemporary players, acknowledged the historical significance of what Westbrook was accomplishing. But the season was approaching its midpoint, and everyone understood that individual excellence would eventually have to translate into team success. The All-Star break was approaching, providing a pause that would allow everyone to assess what had been accomplished and what remained possible. Westbrook would be selected as an All-Star starter, a recognition of his incredible individual season. Durant would join him, though the reunion would be awkward given the circumstances of their separation. The break would provide a moment to celebrate individual achievement while preparing for the more challenging test that lay ahead. Because in the end, basketball is measured in championships. And neither Westbrook's triple-doubles nor Durant's efficiency would matter if they couldn't translate into playoff success. The regular season was providing the narrative, but the playoffs would provide the conclusion. As February approached, that conclusion remained uncertain. The Warriors looked unbeatable. But playoff basketball had a way of revealing unexpected vulnerabilities. The Cavaliers were waiting, experienced and dangerous. The Spurs were improving, with Kawhi Leonard playing at an MVP level. And in Oklahoma City, Russell Westbrook was preparing to prove that loyalty and determination could overcome talent and circumstance. His chase for the triple-double record had become something larger, a referendum on values, a test of individual will against collective talent. Chapter 4: All-Stars and Emerging Legends. The 2017 All-Star Weekend in New Orleans was supposed to be a celebration, but it felt more like a reckoning. New Orleans had prepared for months to host the NBA's mid-season showcase, transforming the city into a basketball festival that celebrated both the game's history and its future. The French Quarter was alive with basketball fans from around the world, creating an atmosphere that was part carnival, part basketball summit. Anthony Davis, of the host New Orleans Pelicans, put on a performance that would be remembered forever. The 24-year-old forward scored 52 points, breaking Wilt Chamberlain's All-Star Game scoring record of 42 points that had stood since 1962. Davis shot 26 of 39 from the field, connecting on 9 three-pointers in a performance that was both historically significant and aesthetically beautiful. Davis was playing in front of his home crowd, and the energy was electric every time he touched the ball. His teammates were feeding him constantly, understanding that they were witnessing something special. The crowd was on its feet for most of the fourth quarter, celebrating not just the record-breaking performance, but the manner in which it was achieved. But the weekend's most compelling subplot remained the awkward reunion between Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Both players had been selected as starters for the Western Conference, forcing them into close proximity for the first time since Durant's departure. The media waited for drama, for some sign of the tension that everyone knew existed beneath the surface. Instead, they were treated to professionalism that spoke to both players' maturity and understanding of the moment's significance. Durant and Westbrook spoke briefly, shared the court without incident, and conducted themselves with the dignity that befitted their status as elite athletes. But everyone could feel the underlying current. These were two players whose lives had been intertwined for nearly a decade, now operating in completely different universes. Durant was surrounded by teammates from Golden State, part of a collective that had redefined what basketball success looked like. Westbrook was alone in the way that only superstars carrying entire franchises could be alone. The contrast was visible and poignant, telling a story about modern basketball that extended far beyond individual relationships. The game itself was a typical all-star affair. Lots of scoring, minimal defense, and moments of individual brilliance that reminded everyone why these players were special. The West won 192 to 182, but the score was less important than the performances and the relationships that were revealed throughout the weekend. LeBron James, at 32, continued to play at an otherworldly level. His 7 assists led the East, and his leadership on and off the court remained unquestioned. James was in his 14th season, but his basketball IQ and physical condition suggested he could continue playing at an elite level for years to come. James had become the elder statesman of the league, mentoring younger players while still competing with them at the highest level. His approach to All-Star Weekend reflected his understanding of basketball as both competition and community, embracing the celebration while maintaining his competitive edge. Stephen Curry delighted the crowd with his range and creativity, hitting shots from distances that defied logic and physics. His 28 points came effortlessly, each made shot accompanied by the kind of celebration that had made him one of the league's most popular players worldwide. Curry's performance was a reminder of how dramatically he had changed basketball culture. Children around the world were now pulling up from 30 feet, attempting shots that previous generations would have considered reckless. His influence extended far beyond his statistics, reshaping how people thought about shot selection and offensive possibilities. But the weekend belonged to Anthony Davis, whose 52-point performance served as a reminder that individual excellence could still transcend team context. Davis was playing for a Pelicans team that wouldn't make the playoffs, but for one night, he was the best player in the world. The performance was particularly impressive because it came against elite competition, with the league's best players trying to prevent him from breaking the record. Davis earned his points through a combination of skill, athleticism, and basketball intelligence that demonstrated why he was considered one of the game's most promising young superstars. The slam dunk contest was won by Glenn Robinson III of the Indiana Pacers. Though the competition lacked the creativity and drama of classic contests from previous decades, the modern dunk contest had become somewhat predictable, with contestants often attempting similar dunks with slight variations. The three-point contest was won by Eric Gordon of the Houston Rockets, reflecting his team's emphasis on long-range shooting and his own emergence as one of the league's most reliable marksmen. Gordon's victory was part of a larger narrative about how the Rockets were revolutionizing offensive basketball. But the skills challenge provided perhaps the weekend's most symbolic moment. Kristaps Porzingis, the 7'3" Latvian forward from the New York Knicks, defeated Isaiah Thomas of the Boston Celtics in the final. Porzingis was representing the new generation of international players who were reshaping what basketball positions meant. His combination of size, skill, and basketball intelligence made him impossible to categorize using traditional positions, while his success was inspiring young players around the world to develop more versatile skill sets. Thomas, meanwhile, was proving that basketball remained a sport where heart and skill could overcome physical limitations. At 5'9", he was thriving in a league increasingly dominated by athletic giants, showing that basketball intelligence and competitive fire could still triumph over physical advantages. The weekend also featured extensive coverage of the rookie class, which was generating significant excitement despite some disappointing injury news. Ben Simmons, the #1 overall pick by the Philadelphia 76ers, had missed the entire season due to a foot injury. But his potential remained tantalizing. Joel Embiid, when healthy, was showing flashes of dominance that suggested he could become one of the league's premier centers. His combination of size, skill, and basketball personality had already made him a fan favorite, though injury concerns remained significant. Dario Saric was quietly having an excellent rookie season with Philadelphia, providing versatility and basketball intelligence that suggested a bright future. His European experience had prepared him well for NBA competition, and he was contributing immediately to a young team focused on development. Brandon Ingram with the Los Angeles Lakers was showing the kind of gradual improvement that suggested future stardom, though his rookie season had been marked by the typical struggles that most young players experience. His length and skill set were ideal for modern basketball, but he needed time to develop physically and mentally. As the weekend concluded and teams returned to their regular season pursuits, several trends had become clear. The Warriors remained overwhelming favorites, but cracks were beginning to show. Durant was occasionally deferring too much, trying to fit into a system that already functioned perfectly. Draymond Green was showing signs of frustration with his reduced role. Even Paradise, it seemed, could create its own forms of dissatisfaction. In Cleveland, the Cavaliers were coasting through the regular season with the confidence of defending champions. LeBron James was playing some of the best basketball of his career, but he was also clearly managing his energy for the playoffs. The Cavs knew that their window was closing, and they were determined to maximize it while they still could. The San Antonio Spurs were quietly assembling another excellent season behind Kawhi Leonard's two-way excellence. Leonard was making a serious MVP case, leading a team that had seamlessly transitioned from the Tim Duncan era to something entirely new, but equally effective. In Houston, James Harden and the Rockets were revolutionizing offensive basketball. Their three-point heavy approach was producing incredible results, but questions remained about whether it could succeed in playoff basketball, where every possession mattered more and adjustments were more frequent and sophisticated. But the season's most compelling individual story remained Russell Westbrook's pursuit of the triple-double record. By the end of February, he had 38 triple-doubles, just 3 short of Oscar Robertson's record. The achievement seemed inevitable, but the circumstances surrounding it remained unique. Westbrook wasn't just accumulating statistics. He was carrying an entire franchise's hopes and expectations. Every triple-double was earned through maximum effort. Every game was played with an intensity that seemed unsustainable, but somehow continued night after night. His teammates had become perfect complements to his unique approach. Steven Adams was averaging a career high in assists. mostly by tapping rebounds directly to Westbrook. Victor Oladipo was playing the best basketball of his career, freed from the pressure of being a primary option. Andre Roberson's defensive impact was amplified by having a point guard who could push the pace immediately after turnovers. The Thunder were actually exceeding expectations, sitting comfortably in playoff position, despite being predicted to miss the postseason entirely after Durant's departure. They were a testament to the power of one player's will to overcome seemingly impossible circumstances. As March approached, several storylines were approaching their climaxes. Westbrook needed 3 more triple-doubles to make history. The Warriors were chasing 70 wins again while trying to maintain their chemistry. The Cavaliers were preparing to flip the switch for their championship defense. But perhaps, most importantly, the regular season was beginning to reveal which teams were built for playoff success and which were merely accumulating impressive regular season statistics. The difference between the two would become apparent soon enough, as the intensity of competition increased and the margin for error decreased. The stage was set for a march that would determine the final playoff seedings and set up what promised to be one of the most compelling postseasons in NBA history. Chapter 5, Making History and Chasing Greatness. March 10th, 2017. Chesapeake Energy Arena in Oklahoma City was electric with anticipation as Russell Westbrook stepped onto the court for what everyone knew could be a historic night. He needed one more triple-double to tie Oscar Robertson's record of 41 in a single season, and the crowd of 18,000 understood they were potentially witnessing basketball history. The atmosphere was unlike anything Oklahoma City had experienced since the Thunder's finals run in 2012. Fans arrived hours early, wearing Westbrook jerseys and holding signs that celebrated his remarkable season. The energy was palpable, a mixture of excitement and defiance that seemed to embody everything the Thunder had become since Kevin Durant's departure. The opponent was the Denver Nuggets, a young team led by Nikola Jokic that was playing spoiler to several playoff hopefuls. But on this night, the Nuggets were merely witnesses to individual greatness. Westbrook finished the game with 50 points, 16 rebounds, and 10 assists, not just tying Robertson's record, but doing so in spectacular fashion. The performance was vintage Westbrook. At his most spectacular, he scored 50 points on 17 of 34 shooting, including 4 three-pointers. His 16 rebounds came from everywhere on the court, with several coming from aggressive pursuit of missed shots that normally would have been secured by taller players. His 10 assists were a masterclass in court vision and timing, finding teammates in perfect position to score easy baskets. But it was the manner of his performance that made it historically significant. Westbrook played with an intensity and focus that seemed to bend the game to his will. Every possession was approached with maximum effort. Every statistical category was pursued with relentless determination. This wasn't just basketball. It was basketball as individual art form. The ovation when he secured his 10th assist lasted several minutes. Fans who had burned Kevin Durant jerseys in the summer now had something entirely different to celebrate. Loyalty rewarded, effort vindicated, history made through sheer force of will. The arena shook with appreciation for a player who had refused to accept limitations or make excuses. But Westbrook wasn't finished with his assault on basketball immortality. 6 days later, against the Atlanta Hawks, he recorded his 42nd triple-double of the season, officially breaking a record that had stood for 55 years. The achievement was remarkable, not just for its statistical significance, but for the context in which it was accomplished. The game against Atlanta was played in Oklahoma City, and once again the atmosphere was electric. Westbrook finished with 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists, numbers that would have been remarkable for any other player but were almost modest by his standards. The record-breaking assist came on a pass to Victor Oladipo, with just under 2 minutes remaining, and the arena erupted in celebration. Robertson had set his record playing alongside Hall of Famers Jerry Lucas and Oscar Gilmore on Cincinnati Royals teams that won 55 and 42 games, respectively. Westbrook was breaking the record while carrying a Thunder team that had lost its best player and was still fighting for playoff positioning. The individual brilliance was undeniable, but questions remained about its ultimate value. Critics pointed to the Thunder's relatively modest team success, noting that individual statistics, however impressive, were meaningless without team achievement. They argued that Westbrook's approach, while spectacular, was ultimately selfish and unsustainable in playoff basketball. But supporters countered that Westbrook was doing exactly what his team needed him to do. The Thunder didn't have the luxury of balanced offensive attack or defensive depth. They needed one player to do everything, and Westbrook was delivering in ways that exceeded even the most optimistic expectations. The debate was philosophical as much as statistical. Was basketball an individual sport that happened to involve teams? Or was it a team sport that allowed for individual excellence within a collective framework? Westbrook's season was forcing everyone to reconsider these fundamental questions about basketball's nature and purpose. His supporting cast had become perfect extensions of his basketball vision. Steven Adams was setting screens that seemed designed specifically to create rebounding opportunities for Westbrook. Victor Oladipo was making cuts and taking shots that maximized Westbrook's assist opportunities. Andre Roberson was playing defense with an intensity that matched his point guard's relentless approach. The system wasn't conventional, but it was effective. The Thunder were exceeding expectations because they had found a way to maximize their best players' impact while still playing competitive team basketball. It was individualism within a collective framework, selfishness that somehow served the greater good. Meanwhile, in Oakland, the Warriors were dealing with their own questions about balance and sustainability. They had clinched the best record in the Western Conference by mid-March, but their dominance was creating different problems. Players were occasionally disengaged during blowout victories. The margin between their talent and their opponents was so large that regular season games felt almost meaningless. Kevin Durant was averaging 25.1 points, 8.3 rebounds, and 4.8 assists while shooting 53.7% from the field and 37.5% from three-point range. These were spectacular numbers, but they came within a system that made basketball look easy in ways that could be deceiving. The Warriors' success was comprehensive, and perhaps too easy. They led the league in offensive efficiency, were second in defensive efficiency, and had the best point differential in the NBA. They were winning games by an average of 11.6 points, the highest margin in the league. They looked unbeatable, which was exactly the kind of expectation that could become problematic in playoff basketball. Steve Kerr was managing the regular season like a chess grandmaster, resting players at strategic moments while maintaining the team's rhythm and chemistry. The Warriors were treating the regular season as preparation for the playoffs, understanding that their ultimate goals would be achieved or failed in the postseason. The challenge for Kerr was keeping his players engaged when success came so easily. How do you maintain competitive intensity when you're winning games by 20 points on a regular basis? How do you prepare for playoff basketball when regular season games rarely require maximum effort? In Cleveland, the Cavaliers were taking a similar approach to Golden State, coasting through the regular season while preparing for the playoffs. LeBron James was playing at an MVP level, but clearly conserving energy for the postseason. His regular season statistics, 26.4 points, 8.7 rebounds, and 8.7 assists, told only part of the story. James was playing within himself, confident that he could elevate his performance when it mattered most. The Cavs had made a crucial midseason addition, acquiring Kyle Korver from the Atlanta Hawks from Mike Dunleavy and Mo Williams. Korver's three-point shooting gave Cleveland another weapon in their arsenal, particularly important given their expected playoff matchup with Golden State. Korver was exactly the kind of veteran shooter that championship teams needed. His 45% three-point shooting provided spacing that opened up driving lanes for LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, while his basketball intelligence and playoff experience made him valuable beyond his statistical contributions. Kyrie Irving was having perhaps the best season of his career, averaging 25.2 points while shooting 40% from three-point range. Irving's ball handling and shot-making ability made him nearly unguardable in isolation situations, providing Cleveland with a secondary scoring option that could take over games when necessary. Kevin Love had fully embraced his role as the third option, providing the kind of consistent production that championship teams required from their role players. Love's willingness to sacrifice individual recognition for team success was exemplary, showing the kind of maturity that championship teams needed from their star players. The Eastern Conference race was largely academic. Cleveland would likely earn the number 1 seed, but everyone understood that their regular season success was merely preparation for a championship defense that would require their absolute best effort against a Warriors team that had added Kevin Durant. In San Antonio, Kawhi Leonard was making a serious case for MVP consideration that was being overshadowed by Westbrook's historic season and Harden's revolutionary offensive approach. The Spurs forward was averaging 25.5 points, 5.8 rebounds, and 3.5 assists while shooting 50% from the field and 38% from three-point range. More importantly, he was playing defense at a level that few players in NBA history had ever sustained. Leonard's two-way excellence was carrying a Spurs team that had successfully transitioned from the Tim Duncan era. They were winning 61 games, second only to Golden State in the Western Conference. They were playing the kind of basketball that had defined San Antonio for 2 decades: fundamental, efficient, and collectively intelligent. But Leonard's individual brilliance was what separated this Spurs team from previous iterations. He was capable of taking over games on both ends of the court, providing the kind of star-level impact that championship teams required. His development from role player to superstar had been one of the decade's most impressive player development stories. Leonard's defensive impact was particularly remarkable. He was guarding the opponent's best perimeter player every night, while also carrying a significant offensive burden. His ability to impact winning at both ends of the court made him one of the most valuable players in the league, even if his quiet personality kept him from receiving the attention that more vocal superstars generated. The MVP race was fascinating in its complexity and depth. Westbrook had the narrative and the statistics. Harden had the efficiency and team success. Leonard had the two-way impact. James had the all-around excellence. Each candidate represented a different philosophy of basketball excellence. Westbrook's candidacy was built on individual dominance and statistical achievement. His triple-double season was historically unprecedented and had been accomplished while carrying a team that everyone expected to struggle. His loyalty to Oklahoma City in the wake of Durant's departure had created a compelling narrative about values and determination. Harden's case was built on efficiency and team success. The Rockets were exceeding expectations behind his systematic excellence, and his statistical production was remarkable for its combination of scoring and playmaking. His ability to make teammates better while putting up huge individual numbers was exactly what MVP voters typically rewarded. Leonard's candidacy was perhaps the most complete, combining elite offense and defense while leading his team to championship contention. His two-way impact was rare in the modern NBA, where specialization had become more common. His quiet leadership and consistent excellence represented traditional basketball values. James remained the league's best player. But his team's performance and his own load management made his MVP case more difficult to make. At 32, he was still capable of basketball excellence that few players in history had ever achieved. But MVP awards typically went to players who combined individual excellence with maximum effort throughout the regular season. But as the regular season entered its final weeks, everyone understood that individual awards were secondary to championship aspirations. The Warriors were overwhelming favorites. But playoff basketball had a way of revealing unexpected truths about teams and players. As April approached, the questions would finally find their answers on the court where they ultimately mattered most. Chapter 6, the final push and award season. As the regular season entered its final month, Russell Westbrook continued his assault on the record books with a relentlessness that bordered on the supernatural. On April 2nd, against the Milwaukee Bucks, he recorded his 37th triple-double of the season with 45 points, 17 rebounds, and 10 assists. But the numbers only told part of the story about what had become a season-long exhibition of individual excellence. Westbrook was carrying the Thunder through sheer force of will, and his teammates had become perfect complements to his unique approach. Steven Adams was setting screens that seemed designed specifically to free Westbrook for optimal rebounding position. Victor Oladipo was making cuts that maximized Westbrook's passing opportunities. Andre Roberson was playing defense with an intensity that matched his point guard's relentless approach to every possession. The Thunder were sitting in 6th place in the Western Conference, a remarkable achievement given the circumstances of their situation. They had exceeded every projection, defeated every expectation, proved that individual excellence could still carry a team in ways that analytics and conventional wisdom suggested were impossible in modern basketball. But the most remarkable aspect of Westbrook's season wasn't the statistics. It was the sustainability. Night after night, game after game, he played with a maximum intensity that seemed physically and emotionally impossible to maintain. Yet somehow, he kept finding ways to elevate his performance when his team needed it most. The games had become appointment television for basketball fans around the world. Every Thunder game carried the possibility of another historic performance, another triple-double, another demonstration of what individual will could accomplish when channeled through elite basketball skill and unlimited determination. On April 9th, against the Phoenix Suns, Westbrook clinched his historic triple-double average for the season. The achievement was unprecedented in the modern era of basketball. Robertson had accomplished the feat in 1961-62 during a different era of basketball, with different rules, different pace, and different expectations. Westbrook had done it in today's NBA, where every possession was analyzed, every statistic was scrutinized, and every player was surrounded by athletic giants. The crowd in Phoenix gave him a standing ovation, a remarkable show of respect from opposing fans who understood they were witnessing basketball history. Players from both teams congratulated him, recognizing the significance of what he had accomplished. Even his critics had to acknowledge the historic nature of his achievement. The season finale against the Denver Nuggets provided the perfect conclusion to Westbrook's remarkable year. He recorded his 42nd triple-double with 50 points, 16 rebounds, and 10 assists, setting the single-season triple-double record while leading the Thunder to a playoff-clinching victory. The Thunder finished the regular season with 47 wins and 35 losses, securing the 6th seed in the Western Conference. They would face the Houston Rockets in the first round, a matchup that would pit Westbrook's individual brilliance against James Harden's systematic efficiency. The Rockets, meanwhile, had completed their own remarkable regular season behind Harden's revolutionary offensive approach. They finished with 55 wins and 27 losses, validating their three-point heavy system while establishing Harden as a legitimate MVP candidate. Harden had averaged 29.1, 8.1 rebounds, and 11.2 assists while leading the Rockets to their best record in years. His combination of scoring and playmaking was historically unique, and his efficiency within Mike D'Antoni's system had revolutionized how people thought about offensive basketball. Meanwhile, the Golden State Warriors were putting the finishing touches on another dominant regular season. They finished with 67 wins and 15 losses, tied for the second-best record in franchise history. Their point differential of plus 539 was the fourth best in NBA history. They looked like a team that had solved basketball at its most fundamental level. Kevin Durant's integration had been flawless. He was averaging 25.1 points, 8.3 rebounds, and 4.8 assists while shooting 53.7% from the field. More importantly, he was playing within a system that maximized everyone's strengths while minimizing individual weaknesses. The Warriors' depth was staggering. Their starting lineup of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, and Zaza Pachulia was outscoring opponents by 18.9 points per 100 possessions. Their bench, led by Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston, provided championship-level experience and versatility. Steve Kerr was managing the team's regular season like a conductor leading a symphony. Every player knew their role. Every possession flowed with purpose. Every game was approached with the kind of professional excellence that championship teams required. In Cleveland, the Cavaliers had secured the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference with 51 wins and 31 losses. LeBron James was playing at an MVP level while clearly conserving energy for the playoffs. At 32, he was still the best player in the world, but he was also smart enough to understand that regular season excellence meant nothing without postseason success. The Cavs had added Kyle Korver's three-point shooting and Deron Williams' playoff experience during the season. They had the kind of veteran roster that understood what championship basketball required. They were older, they were experienced, and they were hungry to prove that their title defense was legitimate. Kyrie Irving was playing the best basketball of his career, averaging 25.2 points while shooting 40% from three-point range. Kevin Love had fully embraced his role as the third option, providing consistent production and improved defense. The Cavaliers looked like a team that could challenge Golden State, but they would have to prove it in the playoffs. The San Antonio Spurs finished with 61 wins and 21 losses, securing the second seed in the Western Conference. Kawhi Leonard was making a serious MVP case, leading a team that had successfully navigated the post-Tim Duncan era. The Spurs were playing beautiful basketball, combining Leonard's individual excellence with a kind of systematic approach that had defined their franchise for decades. But questions remained about their ceiling. Could they compete with Golden State's talent advantage? Could Leonard carry them through a 7-game series against the Warriors? Could their systematic approach overcome individual brilliance when it mattered most? As the regular season concluded, the MVP race had crystallized around 3 primary candidates. Russell Westbrook had the narrative and the historical achievement. James Harden had the efficiency and team success. Kawhi Leonard had the two-way excellence and championship-level impact. Each candidate represented a different philosophy of basketball greatness. Westbrook was the individual maximizing his own talents to carry a team. Harden was the systematic player optimizing his efficiency within a revolutionary offensive framework. Leonard was the two-way star elevating his team through comprehensive excellence. The award would be announced after the playoffs, but the debate would continue regardless of the outcome, because in the end, MVP awards were nice, but championships were forever. And as the playoffs approached, every team understood that the regular season had simply been preparation for what really mattered. The postseason would determine not just which team would win the championship, but which approach to basketball excellence would ultimately triumph. Individual brilliance versus collective talent. systematic efficiency versus raw determination, experience versus expectation. The answers would come soon enough. In the crucible of playoff basketball, where every possession mattered and every weakness was exposed, the 2016 to 2017 regular season had provided the setup. The playoffs would provide the conclusion. But before the playoffs began, there were individual stories that deserved recognition. The Rookie of the Year award went to Malcolm Brogdon of the Milwaukee Bucks, who had emerged from relative obscurity as a second-round pick to become one of the league's most reliable role players. Brogdon's story was particularly compelling because it represented the kind of player development that championship teams required. He could shoot, defend, and make decisions with the basketball, providing exactly the kind of versatility that modern NBA teams valued. The Sixth Man of the Year award went to Eric Gordon of the Houston Rockets, recognizing his crucial role in their revolutionary offensive system. Gordon had provided consistent three-point shooting and scoring off the bench, helping to validate the Rockets' approach to roster construction. Coach of the Year went to Mike D'Antoni for his transformation of the Houston Rockets. D'Antoni had taken a talented but underachieving roster and turned them into one of the league's most exciting and successful teams. His systematic approach to offense had influenced teams throughout the league. Defensive Player of the Year went to Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors, recognizing his versatility and impact on the league's best defensive team. Green's ability to guard multiple positions and anchor Golden State's switching defense made him one of the most valuable defensive players in the league. But the Most Improved Player award went to Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks, whose rapid development had established him as one of the league's most promising young superstars. Antetokounmpo's combination of size, athleticism, and skill was unprecedented, suggesting a future that could reshape what basketball excellence looked like. These awards recognized individual achievement, but they also reflected larger trends in basketball development and strategy. The league was becoming more international, more athletic, and more strategic in its approach to team building and player development. The stage was set for playoffs that would determine not just championship success, but the future direction of professional basketball. The regular season had asked important questions about individual versus collective excellence, about loyalty versus ambition, about traditional approaches versus revolutionary innovation. The playoffs would provide the answers, and those answers would influence basketball culture and strategy for years to come. Chapter 7. The playoffs begin. April 15th, 2017. The NBA playoffs began with the kind of anticipation that only comes when multiple storylines converge at the same moment. 8 teams from each conference, each carrying their own hopes, their own narratives, their own reasons for believing this could be their year. In the Western Conference, the Golden State Warriors opened against the Portland Trail Blazers with the confidence of a team that viewed the first round as a formality. Game 1 at Oracle Arena was a masterpiece of basketball efficiency. The Warriors won 121 to 109, but the score didn't reflect their dominance. They led by 30 points in the third quarter before relaxing in the fourth. Kevin Durant scored 32 points in just 29 minutes, shooting 11 of 15 from the field. Stephen Curry added 29 points with 6 three-pointers. Klay Thompson contributed 21 points. The Warriors' Big Three combined for 82 points while playing a combined total of 79 minutes. It was basketball as art form, beautiful and efficient, and seemingly effortless. The Warriors were switching everything defensively, using their length and versatility to disrupt Portland's offensive rhythm. Every screen was met by a capable defender. Every driving lane was contested by help defense. Every three-point attempt was challenged by players with the size and athleticism to bother even the best shooters. Portland, led by Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum, was a talented offensive team. But they looked overwhelmed by Golden State's combination of talent and system. The Blazers would be swept in 4 games, never really competitive despite their impressive regular season. Lillard, who had been spectacular during the regular season, struggled against Golden State's defense. The Warriors were able to switch on every screen, preventing the kind of mismatches that Lillard typically exploited. McCollum faced similar challenges, finding it difficult to generate clean looks against defenders who possessed both size and quickness. The more intriguing first-round matchup was Oklahoma City versus Houston. Russell Westbrook's individual brilliance against James Harden's systematic efficiency, Game 1 in Houston, set the tone for what would become a fascinating series that highlighted different approaches to basketball excellence. Westbrook recorded a triple-double with 37 points, 11 rebounds, and 10 assists. But the Thunder lost 118-87. Harden countered with 37 points and 9 assists. But more importantly, the Rockets' three-point heavy system functioned exactly as designed. Houston attempted 51 three-pointers, making 22 of them. Oklahoma City attempted 28 threes, making only 7. The contrast in approaches was stark and philosophically significant. Westbrook was doing everything for the Thunder, but Harden was orchestrating an entire system that made everyone around him better. The Rockets had surrounded their superstar with shooters who thrived in Mike D'Antoni's pace and space offense. The Thunder were dependent on Westbrook creating advantages through individual brilliance. Game 2 was closer, but Houston won again, 115-111. Westbrook had 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists, falling 1 assist short of a triple-double. Harden had 35 points and 8 assists, but the series was being decided by factors beyond individual performance. The Rockets were simply a better constructed team for playoff basketball. They had shooters at every position, switching defenders who could handle multiple assignments, and a system that created good shots regardless of what the defense tried to do. The Thunder were relying on Westbrook to create everything, and even his supernatural efforts weren't enough against Houston's systematic advantages. Oklahoma City managed to win Game 3 at home, 115-113, behind Westbrook's 43 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. The Chesapeake Energy Arena was electric, and for one night, individual brilliance overcame systematic basketball. But it wasn't sustainable against a better constructed roster. The crowd in Oklahoma City was desperate for this series victory, understanding that it might represent their best chance to vindicate the decision to remain loyal to Westbrook rather than following Durant to Golden State. The energy was palpable, with fans creating an atmosphere that reminded everyone why home court advantage could still matter in playoff basketball. Houston won Game 4 and Game 5 to close out the series, 4-1. Westbrook's playoff debut as a solo star had ended in disappointment, but his performance had been historic nonetheless. He averaged 37.4 points, 11.1 rebounds, and 10.4 assists for the series, numbers that would have been considered impossible for any other player. The series crystallized one of the season's central debates. Was individual excellence enough in modern basketball, or did systematic team building represent the future of the sport? Houston's victory suggested that even the most spectacular individual performance had limitations against well-constructed team basketball. Westbrook's elimination was particularly painful because it came against his former teammates' preferred style of basketball. Harden, like Durant, had found success by embracing a systematic approach that prioritized efficiency over individual dominance. The contrast was philosophically significant and personally painful. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs were making their own statement in their first-round matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies. Led by Kawhi Leonard's two-way excellence, San Antonio won the series 4-2. though the Grizzlies' veteran toughness made every game competitive. Leonard averaged 27.9 points and 8.1 rebounds, while shooting 52% from the field and 44% from three-point range. He was playing at an MVP level while also providing elite defense. The Spurs looked like a legitimate threat to challenge Golden State if they could stay healthy. Memphis, led by veterans like Mike Conley and Mark Gasol, played the kind of grinding playoff basketball that had defined their franchise for years. They couldn't match San Antonio's talent, but they made every possession difficult and every victory costly. It was exactly the kind of series that could prepare the Spurs for the challenges ahead. In the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers swept the Indiana Pacers with the kind of efficiency that reflected their championship experience. LeBron James averaged 21.9 points, 9.2 rebounds, and 7.9 assists while clearly operating at less than maximum intensity. The Cavs were saving themselves for bigger challenges ahead. The sweep was comprehensive, but not particularly inspiring. Cleveland looked like a team going through the motions, executing at a professional level without the kind of intensity that championship basketball typically required. Whether this was strategic rest or concerning complacency remained to be seen. Paul George led Indiana's resistance, averaging 28 points per game while shooting 39% from three-point range. George was playing at an all-star level, but he couldn't overcome Cleveland's depth and experience. The series highlighted the gap between good teams and championship contenders. The Boston Celtics faced unexpected adversity against the Chicago Bulls, falling behind 2-0 before rallying to win the series 4-2. Isaiah Thomas was spectacular throughout, averaging 28.7 points for the series. But the Celtics' youth showed in their inconsistent play. The Bulls, led by Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler, played with the kind of veteran savvy that could make them dangerous in short series. Wade, despite his age, was still capable of exceptional playoff performances, while Butler provided two-way excellence that kept Chicago competitive. Thomas's performance was particularly impressive given the circumstances. The 5'9" guard was playing through various injuries while carrying Boston's offensive burden. His courage and determination inspired his teammates and earned respect throughout the league. The most surprising first-round result came from the Washington Wizards' 6-game victory over the Atlanta Hawks. The Wizards, led by John Wall and Bradley Beal, played with an intensity and cohesion that suggested they might be capable of challenging Cleveland in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Wall was spectacular throughout the series, averaging 26.8 points and 10.1 assists while providing elite defense. Beal complemented him perfectly, providing consistent scoring and improved decision-making. The Wizards looked like a team that had finally figured out how to maximize their talent. Atlanta, despite their regular season success, looked like a team that had reached its ceiling. They were well coached and fundamentally sound, but they lacked the star power necessary to compete with elite teams in playoff basketball. Their loss to Washington represented the end of an era for a franchise that had been consistently good but never great. As the first round concluded, certain truths had been revealed about the playoff landscape. Golden State looked as dominant as expected, sweeping Portland without breaking a sweat. Houston had validated their systematic approach by defeating Oklahoma City despite Westbrook's historic individual performance. San Antonio had shown they could win without Tim Duncan, though Leonard's health would be crucial going forward. Cleveland looked rusty but experienced, capable of raising their level when necessary. Boston had shown both promise and inexperience, winning a difficult series, but not in convincing fashion. Washington had emerged as a potential dark horse, playing with the kind of confidence that could make them dangerous against any opponent. But everyone understood that the first round was just the beginning. The real tests lay ahead, in second-round matchups that would separate legitimate contenders from regular season overachievers. The Warriors would face the Utah Jazz, who would upset the Los Angeles Clippers. The Spurs would face the Rockets in what promised to be a fascinating clash of styles. Cleveland would face the winner of the Boston-Washington series, testing their championship resolve against hungry teams that had nothing to lose. Each matchup would test different aspects of championship basketball: talent versus system, experience versus youth, individual brilliance versus collective execution. The stage was set for a second round that would begin to separate the true championship contenders from the teams that were merely good enough to make the playoffs. Chapter 8: Conference Semifinals and the Spurs Tragedy. The second round of the playoffs began on May 1st with the kind of intensity that separates good teams from great ones. Every remaining team had survived the first round. But the conference semifinals would reveal which franchises were built for sustained playoff success and which had merely benefited from favorable matchups or opponent weaknesses. The Golden State Warriors opened their series against the Utah Jazz with the casual dominance that had defined their entire season. Game 1 was a 106-94 victory that felt more comfortable than the final score suggested. The Warriors led by 25 points in the third quarter before coasting through the fourth, treating the conference semifinals like an extended practice session. Kevin Durant had 28 points and 15 rebounds, playing with an efficiency that made basketball look like a recreational activity. Stephen Curry added 24 points with 5 three-pointers, his shot selection and accuracy reflecting the confidence of a player who knew his team was superior to their opponent. The Warriors were solving every defensive scheme Utah could present, finding open shots and easy baskets with the kind of systematic precision that had made them nearly unbeatable. The Jazz, led by Gordon Hayward and Rudy Gobert, were a well-coached defensive team with legitimate playoff experience. But they lacked the offensive firepower to keep pace with Golden State. Their upset victory over the Los Angeles Clippers had been impressive, but the Warriors represented a completely different level of challenge. Hayward, Utah's all-star forward, was struggling against Golden State's switching defense and superior athleticism. The Warriors were able to contest every shot while creating transition opportunities that led to easy baskets. Gobert's rim protection was neutralized by Golden State's three-point shooting and ball movement. Game 2 was even more dominant, a 115-104 Warriors victory that again understated their control of the series. Durant had 37 points on 15 of 20 shooting, playing with the kind of aggressive confidence that suggested he was completely comfortable in his new environment. Klay Thompson added 24 points with 6 three-pointers. The series moved to Salt Lake City for Games 3 and 4, but the change of venue did nothing to slow Golden State's momentum. They won Game 3 102-91, with Curry scoring 30 points to lead a balanced offensive attack that demonstrated their depth and versatility. Game 4 was a 121-95 blowout that officially ended any doubt about the series outcome. The Warriors swept the Jazz 4-0, advancing to the Western Conference Finals with a perfect 8-0 playoff record. They were playing basketball at a level that seemed to transcend normal competitive balance, winning games with such ease that their starters rarely played more than 30 minutes per game. Meanwhile, the Houston Rockets were engaged in a much more challenging series against the San Antonio Spurs. Game 1 in San Antonio was a classic, with the Spurs winning 111-92 behind Leonard's magnificent 34 points and 8 rebounds. Leonard was playing at an MVP level, shutting down Harden defensively while carrying San Antonio's offense with his efficient scoring and clutch shot-making. Leonard's performance was a masterpiece of two-way basketball. He was guarding Harden for most of the game, making every shot difficult, while also creating easy baskets for his teammates through his court vision and basketball intelligence. The Spurs looked like a team capable of challenging Golden State, with their systematic approach complemented by Leonard's individual excellence. But Game 2 would change everything, and with it, potentially the entire trajectory of the playoffs. With the Spurs leading by 25 points in the third quarter, and Leonard playing at an otherworldly level, disaster struck in the most innocuous way possible. Leonard turned his ankle while contesting a shot by David Lee, falling awkwardly after Lee stepped under him during his landing. The injury was immediately serious enough to force Leonard out of the game, and he wouldn't return for the remainder of the series. The injury changed basketball history in ways that wouldn't become apparent until later. Without Leonard, the Spurs were a different team entirely, lacking both the defensive anchor and offensive catalyst that had made them championship contenders. Houston won Game 2 108-97, evening the series and establishing momentum that would carry them through the remainder of the matchup. Harden scored 33 points with 10 assists in Game 2, orchestrating the Rockets' systematic offense with the kind of precision that had made them so effective during the regular season. With Leonard out of the game, Houston was able to generate the kinds of clean looks that their system was designed to create. Games 3 and 4 in Houston were Rockets victories, 126-99 and 125-95 respectively. Without Leonard's defensive presence and offensive production, San Antonio couldn't match Houston's firepower. The Rockets were hitting three-pointers at an unsustainable rate, while forcing turnovers that led to easy transition baskets. The Spurs fought courageously without their best player. LaMarcus Aldridge elevated his game, averaging 24 points for the series. Tony Parker provided veteran leadership and playoff experience. Manu Ginobili showed flashes of his championship brilliance, but they couldn't overcome the loss of a two-way superstar in his prime. Game 5 back in San Antonio was the Spurs' last stand, but without Leonard, they couldn't generate enough offense to compete with Houston's systematic efficiency. The Rockets won 114-75, advancing to the Western Conference Finals with a dominant performance that validated their revolutionary approach to basketball. Harden averaged 27.4 points and 9.6 assists for the series. But more importantly, the Rockets had proven that their system could function at the highest level of playoff basketball. They would face Golden State in a conference finals matchup that would pit individual brilliance and systematic efficiency against the Warriors' combination of both. The Leonard injury had profound implications beyond just the series result. It represented the cruel randomness that could determine championship outcomes, the way single moments could alter the trajectory of entire franchises. The Spurs had been legitimate championship contenders, but one awkward landing had ended their season and potentially changed the course of basketball history. In the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers were navigating their own challenges, though with considerably more success. After sweeping Indiana in the first round, they faced a Boston Celtics team that had found their rhythm after a slow start against Chicago. Game 1 in Boston was a statement victory for the Cavaliers, 117-104. LeBron James had 38 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists, playing with the kind of intensity that reminded everyone why he was still the best player in the world. Kyrie Irving added 22 points, and Kevin Love contributed 21 points and 10 rebounds. The Cavaliers' experience was evident in how they handled Boston's youth and energy. They were patient on offense, disciplined on defense, and clinical in their execution during crucial moments. This was championship basketball played by players who understood what playoff success required. But the Celtics responded in Game 2 with a 112-99 victory powered by Isaiah Thomas's spectacular performance. Thomas had 33 points despite being listed at 5'9", proving once again that heart and skill could overcome physical limitations. The series was tied 1-1 as it moved to Cleveland. Thomas was playing through pain, both physical and emotional. His sister had died in a car accident during the first round, and he was dedicating his playoff performance to her memory. His courage and determination were inspiring his teammates and earning respect throughout the basketball world. Games 3 and 4 at Quicken Loans Arena were both Cavaliers' victories, 111 to 108 and 124 to 118 respectively. James was playing at an otherworldly level, averaging 32.6 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 7.6 assists through the first 4 games. The Cavs looked like a team that was hitting their stride at exactly the right moment. Game 5. Back in Boston would be remembered as one of the most significant games of the season, though not for the reasons anyone expected. The Cavaliers won 135 to 102. But the story was Isaiah Thomas's courageous performance while dealing with a hip injury that would eventually require surgery. Thomas played 45 minutes and scored 29 points, despite being in obvious pain. His leadership and determination inspired his teammates and earned respect throughout the league. But the Celtics couldn't overcome Cleveland's experience and talent. The Cavaliers advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals with a 4-1 series victory. The conference finals matchups were now set. Golden State versus Houston in the West, Cleveland versus Boston's Eastern Conference opponent. Each series would test different aspects of championship basketball and determine which teams would meet in what promised to be another epic NBA Finals. But before those series could begin, everyone had to process what the second round had revealed. Golden State looked unbeatable, playing basketball at a level that seemed to make competition irrelevant. Houston had validated their systematic approach, proving that revolutionary offense could overcome traditional playoff basketball when executed properly. Cleveland had shown championship mettle, grinding through a difficult series while LeBron James reminded everyone why he remained the game's ultimate playoff performer. The Spurs had shown what might have been possible before injury changed their trajectory. The stage was set for conference finals that would determine not just which teams would play for the championship, but which approaches to basketball excellence would ultimately prevail in the sport's most demanding environment. The answers would come in the next round, when the stakes reached their highest level and the margin for error disappeared entirely. Chapter 9. Conference Finals. Golden State's March to Perfection. The Western Conference Finals began on May 14th, with a matchup that represented 2 distinct philosophies of basketball excellence. The Golden State Warriors, with their combination of individual talent and systematic perfection, faced the Houston Rockets, who would revolutionize defensive basketball through three-point volume and systematic efficiency. Game 1 at Oracle Arena was a basketball clinic that demonstrated the gulf between talent and system. The Warriors won 119 to 106, but the scoreline understated their dominance. They led by 32 points in the third quarter before relaxing in the fourth, treating the conference finals opener like a regular season game against an overmatched opponent. Kevin Durant was magnificent, scoring 34 points on 13 of 20 shooting, while adding 8 rebounds and 5 assists. Stephen Curry added 28 points with 7 three-pointers. Each made shot a reminder of how dramatically he had changed basketball culture. Klay Thompson contributed 22 points. The Warriors' big three combined for 84 points while playing with an ease that made elite basketball look effortless. James Harden, Houston's superstar and the architect of their revolutionary offense, managed only 17 points on 5 of 16 shooting. The Warriors were switching everything defensively, using their length and versatility to disrupt the Rockets' systematic offense. Every screen was met by a capable defender. Every driving lane was contested by help defense. Every three-point attempt was challenged by players with the size and athleticism to bother even the best shooters. The Rockets' three-point heavy approach, which had been so effective during the regular season and in their victory over San Antonio, was being systematically neutralized by a Warriors defense that had multiple ways to disrupt offensive rhythm. Golden State wasn't just more talented. They were more sophisticated in their understanding of how to counter Houston's revolutionary approach. Game 2 was even more dominant. A 136-100 victory that established a level of superiority that felt almost unfair in its completeness. Durant had 38 points on 14 of 20 shooting, playing with the kind of aggressive confidence that suggested he had found his perfect basketball environment. Curry had 25 points, with 6 three-pointers. But the most remarkable aspect of Golden State's performance wasn't their offensive efficiency. It was their defensive intensity and intelligence. They were switching 1 through 5, pressuring ball handlers and rotating with a precision that left the Rockets looking confused and overwhelmed. This wasn't just talent overwhelming system. This was talent operating within a superior system. The Warriors shot 58% from the field as a team while holding Houston to 41%. They had 40 assists on 46 made field goals, playing with the kind of ball movement and unselfishness that made every possession look like a work of art. They were making basketball look like what it was supposed to be, a game of skill, intelligence, and collective excellence. The series moved to Houston for games 3 and 4, but the change of venue provided no relief for the Rockets. Game 3 was a 126-85 Warriors victory that represented one of the most lopsided conference finals games in NBA history. The Warriors led by 43 points in the fourth quarter, with their starters sitting on the bench celebrating a performance that bordered on basketball perfection. Durant had 34 points in just 29 minutes. His efficiency so remarkable that he barely needed to sweat during one of the biggest games of his career. Curry had 25 points, with 5 three-pointers. The Warriors had dismantled Houston's home court advantage with a performance that was both dominant and aesthetically beautiful. Houston was demoralized in ways that extended beyond the scoreboard. The Rockets were attempting their characteristic high volume of three-pointers, but they were making them at a rate well below their season average. The Warriors' defense was forcing difficult shots while creating transition opportunities that led to easy baskets at the other end. It was a comprehensive tactical victory that validated Golden State's approach to basketball excellence. Game 4 was a mercy killing, a 129-115 Warriors victory that completed a 4-game sweep and sent Golden State to their 3rd consecutive NBA Finals. The final score made the game look competitive, but the Warriors had led by 36 points in the 3rd quarter before emptying their bench and allowing Houston to make the final margin more respectable. Durant averaged 28.5 points, 7.8 rebounds, and 4.3 assists for the series while shooting 55% from the field and 47% from three-point range. Curry averaged 28 points with 6.8 three-pointers per game. The Warriors had played basketball that seemed to transcend normal competitive balance. The sweep was comprehensive and philosophically significant. Houston's revolutionary offense had been neutralized by Golden State's combination of talent, system, and defensive intensity. The Rockets had attempted 147 three-pointers in the series, making only 46 of them, a 31% rate that was well below their regular season average. More importantly, the Warriors had advanced to the finals with a perfect 12-0 playoff record. They were 3 wins away from completing one of the most dominant postseasons in NBA history, and they looked capable of sweeping any opponent placed in front of them. Meanwhile, the Eastern Conference Finals was providing more drama, though the outcome seemed equally predetermined. The Cleveland Cavaliers faced the Boston Celtics in a series that would test Cleveland's championship experience against Boston's youthful energy and Isaiah Thomas's inspirational leadership. Game 1 in Boston was a classic, with the Cavaliers winning 117-104 behind LeBron James's masterful performance. James had 38 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists, playing with the kind of controlled intensity that had defined his playoff career. Kyrie Irving added 25 points, and Kevin Love contributed 15 points and 13 rebounds. The Cavaliers' experience was evident in every aspect of their performance. They were patient on offense, finding good shots within the flow of their system. They were disciplined on defense, helping and rotating with precision. They were composed during crucial moments, making the kinds of plays that championship teams make when games are decided. But Game 2 belonged to the Celtics, who won 108-96 behind a balanced offensive attack that saw 6 players score in double figures. Isaiah Thomas, despite his hip injury, had 28 points and 7 assists. The Celtics had stolen home court advantage and evened the series at 1 game apiece. Thomas was playing through obvious pain, but his determination was inspiring his teammates and creating energy that lifted the entire arena. His courage in the face of both physical pain and personal tragedy was earning respect throughout the basketball world, regardless of team allegiance. Games 3 and 4 in Cleveland were split, with the Cavaliers winning Game 3 103-99, and the Celtics taking Game 4 111-108. The series was competitive in ways that suggested Boston's youth and energy might be enough to challenge Cleveland's experience. But Game 5 back in Boston would be remembered as the night LeBron James reminded everyone why he was still the best player in the world. James had 35 points, 15 rebounds, and 9 assists in a 135-102 Cavaliers victory that essentially ended the series. James was playing basketball at a level that seemed to transcend normal human limitations. He was scoring from everywhere on the court, rebounding like a power forward, and facilitating like a point guard. At 32 years old, in his 14th season, he was still capable of performances that redefined what basketball excellence looked like. The Cavaliers closed out the series in Game 5, advancing to their 3rd consecutive NBA Finals. They had survived a challenging Eastern Conference playoffs and earned the right to defend their championship against the most talented team in NBA history. But everyone understood the reality of what lay ahead. Golden State had gone 12-0 in the playoffs, winning games with a combination of talent and system that seemed almost unbeatable. Cleveland would have LeBron James, championship experience, and the motivation of defending champions. But they would be facing a Warriors team that had added Kevin Durant to a core that had already won 73 games. The stage was set for a finals rematch that would determine not just which team would win the championship, but which approach to building a basketball dynasty would ultimately prevail. Individual excellence and championship experience versus systematic perfection and overwhelming talent. The answers would come in June, when the best team Cleveland could assemble would face the most talented roster Golden State had ever constructed. It promised to be a finals series that would define both franchises and determine the direction of professional basketball for years to come. Chapter 10, The Finals. Warriors Coronation, June 1st, 2017. Oracle Arena in Oakland was electric with anticipation as the Golden State Warriors and Cleveland Cavaliers prepared to meet in the NBA Finals for the 3rd consecutive year. Never before in league history had the same 2 teams faced each other in 3 straight championship series, and the stakes couldn't have been higher for both franchises and the sport itself. The Warriors entered the finals with a perfect 12-0 playoff record, having swept through the Western Conference with a combination of talent and systematic execution that made basketball look easy. Kevin Durant, in his first season with Golden State, was playing with a confidence and efficiency that suggested he had found his perfect basketball home. The atmosphere in Oakland was unlike anything the franchise had ever experienced. Warriors fans understood they were potentially witnessing the culmination of one of the greatest seasons in basketball history. The team that had added Kevin Durant to a 73-win core was 3 victories away from validating their controversial roster construction. The Cavaliers came in as defending champions, with LeBron James making his 7th consecutive finals appearance and 8th overall. Despite being significant underdogs, Cleveland had the kind of championship experience that couldn't be quantified in advanced statistics or systematic analysis. Game 1 was a statement that established the tone for what would become a coronation rather than a competition. The Warriors won 113-91, establishing their dominance from the opening possession. Durant had 38 points on 14 of 20 shooting, playing with an aggression and efficiency that seemed almost unfair to witness. Durant's performance was a masterpiece of offensive basketball. He was scoring from every area of the court, hitting contested shots with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing your supporting cast can cover any weaknesses. His length created matchup problems that Cleveland simply couldn't solve, while his decision-making was flawless throughout. Stephen Curry added 28 points with 6 three-pointers. Each made shot a reminder of how dramatically he had revolutionized basketball culture. The Warriors shot 54% from the field while holding Cleveland to 41%, playing defense with an intensity that suggested they understood the historical significance of the moment. But the most remarkable statistic was Golden State's ball security. They committed only 4 turnovers, tying an NBA Finals record for fewest turnovers in a game. The Cavaliers, by contrast, turned the ball over 20 times, leading to 37 Warriors points. It was championship basketball played at a level that few teams in history had ever achieved. LeBron James did everything he could, finishing with 28 points, 15 rebounds, and 8 assists. He became the first player to score 6,000 career playoff points during the game, surpassing Michael Jordan on the all-time list. But even his remarkable individual performance couldn't overcome Golden State's collective excellence. The Warriors were playing basketball that seemed to transcend normal competitive balance. They were switching everything defensively, moving the ball with precision on offense, and executing with a professionalism that made their 13-0 playoff record look sustainable rather than lucky. Game 2 was more competitive, but produced the same result, a 132-113 Warriors victory that pushed their playoff record to 14-0. Durant had 33 points and 13 rebounds, while Curry added 32 points with 10 rebounds and 11 assists for a triple-double. The game was notable for its pace and offensive excellence. Both teams shot over 50% from the field, combining for 44 three-pointers, an NBA Finals record. It was basketball played at a level of skill and athleticism that represented the sport at its absolute peak. Curry's triple-double was particularly significant because it demonstrated his ability to impact winning in multiple ways beyond just scoring. His rebounding was aggressive for a point guard, while his assists came from reading defenses perfectly and finding teammates in optimal scoring positions. James had 29 points, 11 rebounds, and 14 assists, falling just short of his own triple-double. Kyrie Irving added 27 points, and Kevin Love contributed 15 points. The Cavaliers were playing well enough to beat most teams in NBA history, but they were facing a Warriors squad that seemed to have redefined what basketball excellence looked like. The series moved to Cleveland for Game 3, and for one night, the Cavaliers reminded everyone why they were defending champions. They won 118-113, finally ending Golden State's historic playoff winning streak at 15 games. The victory was crucial for Cleveland's confidence and for the competitive balance of the series. The Cavaliers had proven they could compete with Golden State when they played their absolute best basketball, though the effort required to achieve that level seemed unsustainable over multiple games. But even in defeat, the Warriors had made history. Their 15-game winning streak to start the playoffs was the longest in NBA history, surpassing the previous record of 14 games set by the Los Angeles Lakers in 1989. They had redefined what playoff dominance looked like. Durant led Golden State with 31 points, while Curry added 26 points and 13 rebounds. But Cleveland finally found the defensive intensity and offensive efficiency needed to compete with the Warriors' systematic excellence. James had 39 points, 11 rebounds, and 9 assists, playing with a desperation and brilliance that reminded everyone why he was still the best player in the world. Irving added 38 points on 13 of 20 shooting, providing the kind of individual offensive explosion that championship teams required from their secondary stars. The crowd at Quicken Loans Arena was electric, understanding that they might be witnessing their team's last stand against a Warriors dynasty that seemed destined to dominate the league for years to come. The energy was reminiscent of their championship run the previous year, when they had overcome a 3-1 deficit against these same Warriors. Game 4 would be remembered as one of the highest-scoring finals games in NBA history, though it would also effectively end Cleveland's championship hopes. The Cavaliers won 137-116, evening the series at 2 games apiece with an offensive performance that shattered numerous records, but couldn't mask their underlying disadvantages. Cleveland scored 86 points in the first half, an NBA Finals record that reflected their desperation and determination to extend the series. Irving had 40 points on 14 of 24 shooting, while James added 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 11 assists. The Cavaliers shot 58% from the field and made 18 three-pointers, playing with an offensive efficiency that finally matched Golden State's systematic excellence. Irving's performance was particularly spectacular, with the point guard hitting shots from every area of the court while handling Golden State's switching defense with remarkable poise. His ball handling and shot-making ability were on full display, creating opportunities that most players couldn't imagine, let alone execute. But perhaps more importantly, the Cavaliers had shown they could compete with the Warriors when they played their absolute best basketball. The question was whether they could sustain that level of performance for the remainder of the series, and whether their aging core could match Golden State's depth and systematic advantages. Game 5 would provide the definitive answer. Back at Oracle Arena, with the series tied at 2 games apiece, the Warriors rediscovered the systematic dominance that had carried them through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs with unprecedented efficiency. Golden State won 129-120, clinching their second championship in 3 years with a performance that showcased everything that had made them special. Durant had 39 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists, earning his first NBA championship and Finals MVP award in a unanimous decision. Durant's championship was the culmination of a journey that had begun with his controversial decision to leave Oklahoma City. He had sacrificed individual recognition and embraced a supporting role within a superior system, and he was being rewarded with the ultimate team success that had eluded him throughout his career. Curry added 34 points with 6 three-pointers, playing with the kind of joy and precision that had made him one of basketball's most beloved superstars. His celebration after each made shot reflected the satisfaction of a player who had finally achieved the validation that had been missing from his resume. But the story of Game 5 was Golden State's fourth-quarter execution, leading by just 6 points entering the final period. The Warriors outscored Cleveland 29-23 while making every crucial shot and every defensive stop that the moment required. Durant's three-pointer with 45.3 seconds remaining effectively ended the series, and Cleveland's championship defense. It was a shot that symbolized everything his decision to join Golden State had been about. the pursuit of basketball excellence within a system that maximized individual talent while achieving collective success. The shot was contested but pure, arcing through the air with the confidence of a player who had finally found his basketball home. As it swished through the net, Durant raised his arms in triumph, celebrating not just the basket, but the vindication of his most controversial career decision. James finished the series averaging 33.6 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists, numbers that would have been worthy of Finals MVP consideration in most years. Irving averaged 29.4 points while playing some of the best basketball of his career. But it wasn't enough to overcome Golden State's combination of talent, system, and championship experience. The Warriors finished the playoffs with a 16-1 record, the best winning percentage in NBA playoff history. Their only loss had come in Game 4, when Cleveland played nearly perfect basketball and still only won by 21 points. It was dominance at a level that few teams in any sport had ever achieved. Durant's Finals MVP award was unanimous, recognizing his 35.2 scoring average, 8.2 rebounds, and 5.4 assists per game. He had shot 56% from the field and 47% from three-point range, playing with an efficiency that validated his decision to join Golden State while silencing his critics. As confetti fell at Oracle Arena and the Warriors celebrated their championship, everyone understood that basketball's competitive balance had been fundamentally altered. Golden State had assembled the most talented roster in NBA history and proven that systematic excellence could be sustained at the highest level of competition. The championship was the culmination of a season that had begun with Durant's shocking free agency decision and concluded with his vindication on basketball's biggest stage. The Warriors had proven that when elite individual talent operated within a superior system, the result could be basketball excellence that transcended normal competitive limitations. The 2016 to 2017 season was complete, but its implications would resonate for years to come. The Warriors had established a new standard for basketball excellence, while individual stars like Russell Westbrook and LeBron James had proven that personal greatness could still matter in an era of super teams. The season had answered some questions while raising others. The Warriors' dominance was now established. But how would the rest of the league respond? What did this championship mean for competitive balance? How would future superstars approach free agency, knowing what Durant had accomplished? The answers would come in future seasons. But for now, the Golden State Warriors stood alone as champions of basketball's most talented era. They had proven that systematic team building, when combined with elite individual talent, could create a dynasty that redefined what professional basketball excellence looked like. Chapter 11, Awards and Legacy, June 20th, 2017. The NBA Awards ceremony in New York City served as the official conclusion to one of the most remarkable seasons in basketball history. The venue overlooked the East River, providing a backdrop that seemed appropriate for honoring a season that had been historic in its scope and significance. The Most Valuable Player award went to Russell Westbrook, a selection that surprised no one who had witnessed his historic season, but still carried profound significance for basketball culture. Westbrook had averaged a triple-double for the first time since Oscar Robertson in 1961 to 1962, finishing with 31.6 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 10.4 assists per game. Westbrook's acceptance speech was vintage Westbrook, passionate, emotional, and defiant. He thanked his teammates, his coaches, and the Oklahoma City fans who had supported him through the most challenging season of his career. He spoke about loyalty, about perseverance, about the importance of never giving up on your dreams, regardless of the obstacles placed in your path. "This award is not just for me," Westbrook said, his voice breaking with emotion. "This is for everyone who believed when others doubted." This is for Oklahoma City, for my teammates, for everyone who understands that individual success means nothing without the support of people who believe in you. But everyone in attendance understood the subtext. This was an award that recognized not just statistical achievement, but philosophical victory. In a season dominated by super teams and systematic basketball, the MVP award had gone to a player who had proven that individual will could still overcome collective talent when executed with sufficient intensity and determination. The award was particularly meaningful because it validated an approach to basketball that many analysts had declared obsolete. Westbrook had won by doing everything for his team, by refusing to accept the limitations that roster construction had seemingly imposed on his franchise. His victory was a triumph for individual excellence in an era increasingly defined by collective talent accumulation. The other major awards reflected the season's diverse forms of basketball excellence. Kawhi Leonard won Defensive Player of the Year, recognizing his two-way impact for the San Antonio Spurs. Leonard had played elite defense while carrying an enormous offensive burden, proving that two-way excellence remained the highest form of basketball achievement in an era of increasing specialization. Leonard's defensive impact had been remarkable throughout the season. He had guarded the opponent's best perimeter player every night while also serving as San Antonio's primary offensive catalyst. His ability to impact winning at both ends of the court made him one of the most complete players in basketball, even if his quiet personality kept him from receiving the attention that more vocal superstars generated. Malcolm Brogdon of the Milwaukee Bucks won Rookie of the Year, though the award felt almost secondary given the season's larger narratives. Brogdon's story was compelling because it represented the kind of player development that championship teams required. A second-round pick who had emerged as a reliable contributor through hard work and basketball intelligence. Brogdon had averaged 10.2 points, 4.2 assists, and 2.8 rebounds while shooting 45% from the field and 40% from three-point range. His efficiency and versatility made him exactly the kind of role player that successful teams needed to complement their superstars. Sixth Man of the Year went to Eric Gordon of the Houston Rockets, recognizing his contribution to their revolutionary offensive approach. Gordon had provided consistent three-point shooting and scoring off the bench, helping to validate the Rockets' systematic approach to roster construction and offensive philosophy. Gordon's 16.7 points per game off the bench had been crucial to Houston's success. His ability to create and make three-point shots had provided the spacing that made James Harden's drives to the basket more effective, while his veteran leadership had helped integrate younger players into their system. Mike D'Antoni won Coach of the Year for his transformation of the Houston Rockets, though the award felt somewhat hollow given their second-round playoff exit. D'Antoni had revolutionized offensive basketball, but championships remained the ultimate measure of coaching success, and his system had ultimately been neutralized by Golden State's superior talent and defensive versatility. D'Antoni's impact on basketball culture was undeniable, however. His three-point heavy approach had influenced teams throughout the league, forcing coaches and front offices to reconsider traditional approaches to shot selection and offensive efficiency. His work in Houston would influence basketball strategy for years to come, even if it hadn't produced championship success. But the individual awards, while important, couldn't capture the season's true significance. The 2016 to 2017 NBA season had been about more than statistical achievement or individual excellence. It had been about the collision of different philosophies of basketball success, about the tension between loyalty and ambition, about the evolution of team building in an increasingly sophisticated sport. Kevin Durant's championship with the Golden State Warriors represented the triumph of systematic team building and collective talent accumulation. Durant had sacrificed individual recognition and embraced a supporting role within a superior system, and he had been rewarded with his first NBA championship and Finals MVP award. his decision had been vindicated in the most complete way possible. Durant's Finals MVP award was unanimous, recognizing not just his statistical production, but his ability to perform at the highest level when the stakes were greatest. His 35.2 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 5.4 assists per game in the finals had been the culmination of a season-long process of integration and sacrifice. Russell Westbrook's MVP award represented the persistence of individual excellence in a team sport. Despite losing his best teammate and playing for a franchise that lacked championship-level talent, Westbrook had willed his team to playoff success through sheer force of individual determination and basketball brilliance. The contrast between Durant and Westbrook's approaches had provided the season's most compelling narrative. Durant had chosen the path of collective success, joining a team that could maximize his talents while minimizing his weaknesses. Westbrook had chosen the path of individual excellence, attempting to carry a team through personal dominance and determination. Both approaches had been rewarded, but in different ways. Durant had achieved championship success and team validation. Westbrook had achieved individual recognition and cultural significance. Neither path was inherently superior, but both represented valid approaches to basketball excellence in the modern era. The season had also marked the end of an era in San Antonio, where Tim Duncan's retirement had officially closed one of the most successful dynasties in sports history. Duncan's 19-year career, 5 championships, and countless memories had established a standard of professional excellence that would influence the game for generations to come. Duncan's legacy was particularly significant because it represented a different approach to basketball stardom. He had never sought individual recognition, never demanded attention, never complained about roles or teammates. His success had been built on consistency, fundamental excellence, and team-first mentality that seemed increasingly rare in modern basketball. LeBron James, despite losing in the finals, had continued his remarkable run of sustained excellence. His performance against Golden State had reminded everyone why he remained the best player in the world, even as he faced the most talented roster in NBA history. At 32, James was still playing at an MVP level while carrying championship expectations that few players in history had ever faced. James's finals performance, averaging 33.6 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists, had been historically great, but ultimately insufficient against Golden State's systematic advantages. His ability to impact winning in multiple ways remained unparalleled, but even his excellence had limitations against superior collective talent. The season had also established several players as emerging superstars who would define basketball's future. Kawhi Leonard's two-way excellence for San Antonio suggested he was ready to become the face of a franchise and a legitimate championship centerpiece. James Harden's offensive brilliance with Houston had proven that his unique skill set could carry a team to championship contention. Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee was beginning to show the versatility and athleticism that would make him one of the game's most unique talents. His combination of size, skill, and basketball intelligence suggested a future that could transcend traditional position limitations and redefine what basketball excellence looked like. But perhaps the season's most significant legacy was what it suggested about the future of professional basketball. Their 16-1 playoff record represented the best winning percentage in NBA history. Their combination of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, and Draymond Green had created a core that seemed capable of sustaining excellence for years to come. They had established a new paradigm for what championship basketball required. The implications for the rest of the league were profound and lasting. How could franchises compete with Golden State's talent advantage? Would other stars follow Durant's example and join established super teams? Had competitive balance been permanently altered by the Warriors' systematic excellence? Some teams would respond by trying to accumulate multiple superstars through free agency and trades. Others would focus on systematic team building and player development, hoping to find efficiency advantages that could overcome talent disadvantages. Still others would embrace rebuilding strategies designed to acquire elite young talent through the draft. But everyone understood that the Warriors had changed the conversation about what basketball excellence required. They had proven that systematic team building, when combined with elite individual talent and organizational culture, could create advantages that were difficult for traditional roster construction to overcome. The season had also highlighted the ongoing evolution of basketball strategy and culture. The Houston Rockets' three-point heavy approach had influenced teams throughout the league, forcing coaches and general managers to reconsider traditional approaches to shot selection and offensive efficiency. Analytics and systematic thinking were becoming more important than ever before. The traditional positions were becoming increasingly irrelevant as players developed more versatile skill sets and coaches implemented more flexible systems. The concept of positionless basketball was becoming reality, with players like Draymond Green and Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kunpo representing the future of basketball versatility. Yet individual excellence remained relevant, as Westbrook's MVP season had definitively proven. Basketball was still a sport where individual talent could overcome systematic disadvantages when executed with sufficient intensity and determination. The balance between individual excellence and systematic team building would continue to define championship basketball for years to come. The Golden State Warriors were champions, but their dominance had created challenges for competitive balance that would influence the league for years to come. Individual stars like Russell Westbrook and LeBron James had proven their continued relevance, but they had also demonstrated the limitations of individual excellence against superior collective talent and systematic advantages. The season was over, but its implications were just beginning to be understood. The legacy of the 2016 to 2017 season would be written not just in championships and awards, but in how the league adapted to the new realities that Golden State's success had created. The future of professional basketball would be shaped by the lessons learned during this remarkable year. Epilogue: the echo of thunder and the dawn of a dynasty. The Golden State Warriors had established a new standard for basketball excellence, but their dominance had also created questions about competitive balance that would influence the league for years to come. Russell Westbrook's MVP award represented more than individual achievement or statistical excellence. His triple-double season had reminded everyone that basketball, at its core, remained a sport where individual excellence could transcend systemic disadvantages. The award ceremony had felt like both celebration and referendum, honoring individual achievement while acknowledging the larger forces reshaping basketball culture. Westbrook's emotional acceptance speech had resonated with fans who valued loyalty over championship chasing, effort over convenience, individual brilliance over collective dominance. Kevin Durant's championship with Golden State represented a different philosophy entirely. The idea that individual sacrifice within a superior system could produce results that individual dominance could not achieve alone. Durant had found the championship success that had eluded him in Oklahoma City, but his path to that success had fundamentally changed how players thought about career decisions and legacy building. Durant's Finals MVP performance had been the culmination of a season-long journey from villain to vindicated champion. His integration with the Warriors had been seamless, his production had been efficient, and his impact had been decisive when the stakes were highest. He had proven that talent, when properly channeled through superior systems and organizational culture, could achieve basketball immortality. The season had also marked significant transitions that would influence basketball culture for years to come. Tim Duncan's retirement had ended one of the most successful careers in basketball history, while other veterans like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett were preparing for their final seasons. The torch was being passed to a new generation of stars who would define the sport's future direction. His 19-year career with one franchise had established standards of professional excellence that would be difficult to replicate in an era of increased player mobility. LeBron James, despite his finals loss, remained the game's transcendent talent and most compelling figure. James's performance in the finals had been historically great, but ultimately insufficient. A reminder that even individual excellence had limitations against superior collective talent. His legacy remained secure, but the challenge of competing against Golden State would define the remainder of his career and influence his future decision-making. The Houston Rockets had validated their revolutionary offensive approach, proving that systematic innovation could produce championship-level success, even if it ultimately fell short against superior talent. Their three-point heavy system would influence team building throughout the league, as franchises sought ways to maximize offensive efficiency in an increasingly athletic and skilled competitive environment. The future would require both innovation and talent accumulation to compete at the highest level. But the Warriors' dominance raised uncomfortable questions about competitive balance that extended beyond basketball into larger discussions about fairness and opportunity in professional sports. Had they assembled a roster so talented that normal competition was no longer relevant? Could other teams realistically challenge their systematic excellence? Had Durant's decision fundamentally altered the league's competitive structure? The answers would come in future seasons, as other stars made their own decisions about how to pursue championship success. Some would follow Durant's example and join established super teams, prioritizing winning over individual recognition. Others would embrace Westbrook's approach and attempt to carry lesser talented rosters through individual excellence and determination. The summer of 2017 was filled with speculation about how the league would respond to Golden State's dominance. Trade discussions were more intense than ever, with general managers seeking ways to acquire multiple stars who could compete with the Warriors' talent advantage. Free agency decisions carried greater weight, as every signing was evaluated through the lens of Golden State's systematic excellence. Draft strategies were influenced by the need to find players capable of competing with the Warriors' versatility and skill level. International scouting became more important as teams searched for hidden gems who could provide value without requiring maximum salary commitments. Player development programs were enhanced as organizations sought to maximize talent at every roster level. But beyond the strategic implications, the season had produced moments of individual brilliance that reminded everyone why basketball remained compelling as both entertainment and art form. Westbrook's relentless pursuit of triple-doubles had been basketball as performance art. Durant's efficient scoring within Golden State's system had been basketball as systematic perfection. LeBron's sustained excellence despite age and enormous expectations had been basketball as individual transcendence. Kawhi Leonard's two-way dominance had been basketball as complete player excellence. James Harden's revolutionary offensive approach had been basketball as tactical innovation. These performances had occurred within a season that showcased basketball at its highest level of skill, athleticism, and strategic sophistication. The players were more talented than ever. The systems were more sophisticated, and the competition was more intense. The 2016 to 2017 season had established new standards for what basketball excellence looked like at every level. As teams prepared for the next season, everyone understood that the competitive landscape had been permanently altered. The Warriors had proven that systematic team building, when combined with elite individual talent and organizational culture, could create advantages that traditional roster construction struggled to overcome. But basketball remained a sport where individual moments could transcend systemic advantages, where single plays could change championship series, where human will and determination still mattered as much as talent and system. The tension between individual excellence and collective talent would continue to define championship basketball for years to come. The rookie class that had been overshadowed by established stars would continue developing, with players like Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid in Philadelphia representing the future of basketball versatility and athleticism. International players like Kristaps Porzingis were reshaping position expectations and expanding the global reach of basketball culture. The coaching profession was evolving as well, with systematic thinkers like D'Antoni and Brad Stevens representing the future of tactical innovation. Player development had become as important as talent acquisition, with organizations investing heavily in training facilities, sports science, and psychological support for their athletes. The media landscape was changing too, with social media providing players direct access to fans while creating new pressures and expectations. The relationship between athletes and media was becoming more complex, with players like Durant and Westbrook representing different approaches to public engagement and narrative control. The 2016 to 2017 season was complete, but its influence would be felt for years to come. It had established new standards, raised new questions, and created new expectations for what professional basketball could achieve at its highest levels of competition and entertainment. His summer workouts were legendary. His determination was unwavering, and his commitment to Oklahoma City was absolute. The thunder had been heard throughout the basketball world. The season was over, but the story it had told would continue to unfold with each passing year, each new decision, each player's choice between individual glory and collective success. The 2016 to 2017 NBA season had asked fundamental questions about basketball excellence that the sport would spend years answering. The season was complete. The legacy was just beginning.